Hey, what's happening? This is Nate at the Lounge and Trout. Today we're going to be tying a Zebra Midge, and it's one of the deadliest flies that I use in my inventory that I always keep in my fly box in a few different range of sizes. I think about the biggest I'll ever fish, and it's on rare occasions, is about a number 14. Typically I'll use like a 16, down to 20 or even 22. On rare occasions, I'll go down smaller than that, but that's not very often. Typically, you can get around with a size 16 and do very well. So we're going to just jump right into this, and I'm using an 1120 Daiichi size 16 hook for this, and the bead head is a copper 2mm, also known as a 5/64 tungsten bead head. I prefer using tungsten in certain situations for this when you're trying to get the midge down low, which is typically where trout will be searching for these midges. Sometimes I'll use just a regular brass bead head, but it just depends on the situation, how quick the water's moving, how deep I'm trying to go. A lot of different things come into factor with that, but for the most part, a tungsten bead head works very well. The ones I use, I get from Wholesale Fly Company. They have a website. I've bought some of their stuff off eBay before, and I've been very pleased with the quality of their products. All right, let's jump into this. So where I usually like to start is I'll get my thread, put it right behind the bead head, and I'll give it a few wraps, trying to build up a little bit of a base there so that bead head doesn't slide back too much. Then I'll slowly work back just a little ways, work myself back up to the front, work back down a little bit further, work back up to the front. And the purpose of this is you're trying to build a tapered body. It gives it a very natural look to your fly. So just keep slowly trying to build that up. It also helps to keep that bead head from sliding backwards on you. And that's definitely something you want to keep track of here. Something else that happens too is as you spin your thread, I don't know if you can see very well in the video, it tends to twist very tightly. So what you can do is let your bobbin go and get a counterclockwise twist, and just let that thread kind of unravel itself. It helps to flatten it out and gives you a smoother fly in a sense. And careful when you start getting towards the back of the fly, the tail end, that hook, you don't want your thread hitting the point of that hook like that, or else you can cause it to break your thread. So then I just work my way back up, trying to keep that body tapered. Give it a counterclockwise twist. And I usually work my way back down to about where the barb would be on your hook. If you're fishing barbless, then just kind of figure out where your barb would come naturally. And that's about where I stop. I don't typically go back all the way towards the bend of the hook real far. Some people like to, but I noticed that when you are catching fish, a lot of times when you're trying to get the hook out of the fish's mouth, it can start to tear your fly up if their little teeth or just abrasions start getting against that thread. So now that I've cut off the little taper, I'll go here and just do a couple wraps around where that little tail end piece of thread would be. Now it's time to get our copper wire and tie it in. And you don't have to use a copper bead head or copper wire. You can use whatever colors you'd like, but these tend to be the best colors for just all around days that I've found that works good. Black thread's always been good. Basically any river you go on, just about, you can't really go wrong with it. But Other colors like, you know, dark reds or dark greens, those tend to work pretty well too. At this point, what I like to do is I'll get my wire in my left hand, get my thread in my right, and I'll get just enough wire that it goes about here on my hook. I like to leave just a little bit of a gap in the front for whenever I finish with the whip finisher, get my knot. But I'll get my thread and I'll kind of pinch it between my fingers like this. And as I bring it down, it helps to hold itself in place without letting that wire twist around. So let's give it some wraps going around towards the top. I try to keep that wire around the top of the hook if I can. It's not so essential. I'm not super strict on tying my flies, but I like to try to keep it uniform if I can. I know some fly tires you'll see on videos will be very, very good. I'm not near that good, but I don't feel that you have to be an extremely good fly tire to catch fish. All right, so that kind of gives us a little buildup on the hook there with the wire. So then we'll just slowly kind of uniform the thread here and slowly work our way back down, trying to keep that body uniform, pretty close to what you can with the taper. Work it back down, and then I sort of just work it back up once. Now we've got a real nice body built up here. And some people like to do theirs a little thinner. A little thicker body like that is all right. It's not too essential to have it thicker or thinner, just depending on what the flies are looking like in your area, but this is a good general guideline to go by. All right, now I'll get my wire and I'll start twisting it towards me, being mindful of that sharp piece of the hook. And as I'm twisting it, I'm wrapping it in a spiral motion towards the bead here. And this is making the ribs on the fly. You don't want to pull too awful tight because this wire is pretty thin, but just tightly enough that it's snug to the hook. Once you get about up to where the bead head is, I usually like to try to get it to where I can wrap towards the bottom right here. And I'll bring my thread around. Oop. Give it a couple of wraps. And then you can just spin the rest of your wire off. I think people call it helicoptering your wire, or different terms people use. All right, now what I like to do is just sort of give it a few good turns here, kind of get it solidified. Then I'll take my whip finisher, old trusty tool, and I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 turns. I like to do 5 typically. Smaller flies, I usually do 3 to try to not build too much of a thread base up. But it's whatever your preference is. You can do 4, you can do, you know, just whatever number you prefer doing. Then I'll take my thread and I'll pull it back and forth just a little bit to kind of solidify that knot. Get as close as I can with my scissors. Cut that thread off. At this point, you're done with your fly essentially. Some people like to just fish it this way. Personally, I like to put some UV resin on it. It really helps when you're catching a lot of fish, and it keeps your thread on here real tight. It helps it keep it from fraying. That's just my experience with it. I do catch a lot of fish on this fly. It's a wonderful fly. I use Loon Outdoors UV clear fly finish, and it comes in a little small bottle, just a little bottle like this. It's got a brush on the end of it, and you want to use a UV light with it, and careful not to point any UV light towards your body because it's supposed to be bad for you. But I'll just show you here. I'll put a little bit, just a slight amount, onto my fly like this. Some people will leave it like that, but what I've found, if you do, it will kind of cause it to get clear, sort of like a, I don't know, like a plasticky finish to it. So what I like to do is I'll get just a little paper towel or Kleenex, and I'll sort of dab it a little bit, like that. And that helps keep that rib look to it and not as smooth. Then I'll get my UV light, and just a few seconds will do the job. You don't need to spend a whole lot of time. I'd probably give it a lot more than it needs, but just kind of turn it real slow. And that's all it takes. That is how you tie a size 16 Zebra Midge. If you have any other questions, or if you would like to know more about how to fish this fly, I can make a video on it in the future. Just leave a comment and let me know if that's something you'd like to see. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll be creating more content like this to come. Thank you for watching.